There's a lot of people talking about this in the comment sections of different videos, but this was the most recent comment about this that I could find, and I have been wanting to talk about this in particular for a while now. Because the idea that we have about Morrigan is that Azriel's in love with her, and Cassian has been being used as a buffer between Mor and Azriel, because the situation is just awkward. It's been 500 years of Azriel just pining after Morrigan. But I really don't believe this anymore, and unless there's new material to support that assertion, I think the narrative has just been straight up lying to us, and Rhys and Feyre are just completely misinformed. So the first time we hear about the Cassian, Morrigan, Azriel thing, Rhysand is telling Feyre, like, all of the bochinche, the gossip. And he's basically like, so this is what happened, XYZ. And Feyre's like, all right, cool. Because she is seeing everything through Rhysand's eyes, and she's not necessarily going to question Rhysand's view on his own friends, right? But then we see Azriel interact with Mor, and, like, yeah, he's a little bit, like, he hovers, but it doesn't come off like they're in love. Like, it definitely does not come off like he is as into her as Rhysand is saying. And right before chapter 54, Feyre, I think, approaches Morrigan goes to the House of Wind to shoot the shit with Feyre, while Feyre is absolutely vandalizing the House of Wind. But then she's like, hey, like, she hints at the whole Azriel thing, like, hey, what's going on with Azriel and Cassian? Like, what's going on? Like, what's the dish? What's the gossip? And Morrigan says something like, it wouldn't even be me that would dictate what would happen then. It would be Azriel, because I could stand in front of him completely nude and throw myself at him and he wouldn't move. Like, his issue is not his love for me, it's his self-worth. And at first, I think we're supposed to take this as Morrigan kind of in denial about her latent feelings for Azriel or whatever, or Azriel's, like, obvious feelings for her. But then we get into book 3, and Morrigan is out here, like, banging Hellion and being miserable about it. And the way that this is contextualized is Rhysand says something like, Azriel went out of his way to beat Eris's ass because Eris disrespected Mor, and Morrigan got, like, freaked out by Azriel's show of affection or love or whatever, and she went to sleep with Hellion just to piss off Azriel. And at the time, I remember being like, huh, okay. And then I ended up going, huh, again when Morrigan came out to Feyre. And I would take this at face value if there wasn't this whole thread of Morrigan being very weirdly possessive over Cassian during a Court of Wings and Ruin. There's definitely, like, this, Morrigan is just watching Cassian and watching Nesta, and to a lesser extent Azriel and Elaine as well, but mostly Cassian. I remember specifically there's, like, a thing where Cassian is talking about he's talking about something with Nesta and Elaine, and Morrigan is, like, holding her tongue like she wants to say something, and then Azriel's looking at her like, shut the fuck up, like they've already talked about it. So that means that Azriel and Morrigan, they're off in the periphery gossiping about Cassian, and that just doesn't come off to me like Morrigan is icked out by Azriel because Azriel's, like, insanely in love with her. And then we get to Azriel's bonus chapter. And I think at this moment, like, yes, he is absolutely simping over Elaine, but I think for him to have been in love with Morrigan for 500 years, I would think that the first time Morrigan comes up in the Akasif narrative, he would say something about Morrigan. But no, the first person to talk about Morrigan in Az's bonus chapter isn't Azriel at all. It's Rhysand. Rhysand is the one, like, hey, like, hey, buddy, like, you're all, like breathing all over Elaine, but what about Morrigan? And Azriel is just kind of like, he doesn't even acknowledge the comment, like, either in dialogue or as narration. Cassian is actually the one to have this big thing about Morrigan in the beginning of A Court of Silver Flames, where he says something like, he had feelings for her, and when she asked him to sleep with her, he did it, and the years and the centuries had turned like his love for her into something a little more tempered, something more like friendship. But he still looks at her and he still finds her beautiful, and he does, and like you would look at a piece of art in a museum or something, and he even says like he wonders if she knows that, and that is miles above any sort of non-physical, non-sexual comment that Cassian ever makes about Nesta. Now, absolutely none of this is on Morrigan. Morrigan is just a bisexual or a gay girl minding her own business who is in a somewhat murky love triangle between two guys who we seem to have a very skewed idea what the love triangle is. Like, none of this is her fault. But I am absolutely refusing to dismiss Azriel as some kind of incel until we find out what exactly is the nature of this love triangle between Cassian and Morrigan and Azriel, because it really doesn't make sense to me the way that Cassian and Azriel both are narrate themselves, that this situation is exactly the way Rhysand says it. Like, there's no way. And in regards to the comment itself, I agree. For Cassian to go from "I will find you in this world and the next to Nesta," to exchanging his underpants with Morrigan, and I think there's a point in A Court of Wings and Ruin where like Nesta and Cassian, like they're holding hands, and then Morrigan walks into the room and Cassian drops her hand. Like, it is straight up an all too well 10-minute version music video moment. Like, Nesta is Sadie Sink yelling at Styles Stilinski, "You dropped my fucking hand!" And Cassian's like, "I don't even remember the moment that this was. Like, this was the moment where, like, I was injured and like, whatever. Like, I didn't know that I dropped your hand." And Nesta's just like, "I don't know these people. They're all older than me. And you dropped my hand and you made me feel so alone." And then this whole argument, like, segues off into, like, the next section of the song where Taylor's just like, "Well, we got lost in translation. Maybe I asked for too much." Long story short, this love triangle is not the way it seems. Rhysand is completely wrong about it, and Azriel is not nearly as into Morrigan as what is currently thought of. And I think if anyone is undoubtedly into Morrigan, it is Cassian.